The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched before Taemin like a vast ocean of alien faces. 847 species had gathered on Nexus Prime for this historic session. The air hummed with translators working overtime, converting thousands of different languages into something everyone could understand. Taemin sat alone at the human delegation table. His dark suit looked simple compared to the elaborate robes and armor worn by other ambassadors. He kept his hands folded, his face calm. Inside, his heart raced. But he had learned long ago not to show fear to aliens who already thought humans were too emotional. The speaker's platform rose high above the assembly floor. Veltar of the ancient hegemony stood there, his crystalline body catching the light like a living prism. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall with the weight of 10,000 years of galactic authority. "We gather today to address the human problem," Veltar announced. "For 50 Earth years we have watched this young species spread across our galaxy. We have seen their wars, their aggression, their refusal to follow proper protocols. Today we must decide if humanity deserves a place among civilized species." Taemin had known this day would come. The signs had been building for months. Trade agreements suddenly canceled, cultural exchanges mysteriously postponed, other ambassadors avoiding him in the corridors. Sora, his intelligence chief, had warned him that several council members were meeting in secret. "The evidence speaks for itself," Veltar continued. He gestured and holographic displays filled the air above the assembly. Images of human soldiers in combat, ships bristling with weapons, cities rising from barren worlds in defiance of environmental protection laws. "Humans fight constantly," declared Ambassador Quix of the Peaceful Coalition. Her tentacles waved in agitation as she spoke. "In their short history, they have waged over 15,000 wars. They solve problems with violence first, diplomacy second." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. Taemin watched species that had never agreed on anything nod in unison. The prosecution had done its work well. "They expand too quickly," added Representative Thane of the Exploration Guild. "They claim worlds without proper surveys. They build cities before understanding ecosystems. They act first and ask permission later." More nods, more murmurs. Taemin felt the weight of 800 alien gazes upon him. He thought of Earth, 30 light-years away. His wife Yunsu was probably making breakfast right now, unaware that her husband was about to hear her species condemned by the galaxy. "Most disturbing of all," Veltar's voice grew stern, "humans form emotional attachments inappropriately. They treat trade as friendship. They offer aid without expecting proper compensation. They adopt alien children. They marry outside their species. This emotional chaos threatens the careful balance we have maintained for millennia." That accusation stung more than the others. Taemin thought of his friend Kozak, a young Vorthon trader whose ship had crashed on Earth 5 years ago. Human doctors had saved his life. Human families had welcomed him while he recovered. When Kozak finally returned home, he spoke of humans as family. The Vorthon government had been horrified. "The prosecution calls Captain Jin Ho of the vessel New Soul," Veltar announced. Jin Ho rose from the human delegation table. He walked to the witness platform with military bearing, his uniform crisp and formal. He had commanded the ship that brought Taemin to Nexus Prime, and had been ordered to testify by the Council's Security Committee. "Captain Jin Ho," Veltar began. "Your ship carries weapons capable of destroying a small moon. Why does a diplomatic vessel need such firepower?" Jin Ho stood straight. "We travel through dangerous space, Speaker Veltar. Pirates, raiders, and hostile species threaten all ships in the outer regions. We carry weapons to defend ourselves and others." "Others?" Veltar's crystalline form seemed to sharpen. "You mean you use your weapons to interfere in conflicts that do not concern you?" "We help those who ask for help," Jin Ho replied simply, "without authorization from proper authorities, without following established protocols, without consideration for political consequences." Veltar turned to address the assembly. "This is exactly the behavior we must address. Humans act without permission, without wisdom, without restraint." The questioning continued for hours. Every aspect of human behavior was examined and found wanting. Human exploration was called reckless. Human trade practices were deemed unfair because humans often gave more than they received. Human military doctrine was criticized for being too aggressive and too protective at the same time. Ambassador Flix of the Ancient Collective spoke next. His species had ruled part of the galaxy when Earth was still covered in ice. Young species require guidance, he said in his deep, rumbling voice. Humans refuse all guidance. They insist on learning through experience, even when that experience brings suffering to themselves and others. They are barely 50 years into space travel, added Counselor Zeph of the Academic Assembly. Yet they presume to teach us about compassion, about sacrifice, about honor. They have not earned the right to such presumption. Taman listened to it all without speaking. The Council's rules required him to remain silent until called to respond. He used the time to study the faces around him. Some species looked genuinely concerned about human behavior. Others seemed more interested in human territory and resources. A few appeared bored, as if the outcome had already been decided. Finally, Veltar called for humanity's defense. Taimin walked to the witness platform on steady legs. The great hall fell silent. 847 species waited to hear what Earth's representative would say in his people's defense. Honored speaker, respected delegates, Taimin began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I will not dispute the facts presented today. Humans do fight. We do expand quickly. We do form emotional bonds with other species. We do act without always seeking permission first. Surprised murmurs echoed through the hall. They had expected denials, justifications, pleas for understanding. But I ask you to consider why we do these things, Taiman continued. We fight because we have learned that predators exist in this galaxy. We expand because there are worlds where people suffer and empty planets where they could thrive. We form bonds because we believe friendship is stronger than mere trade agreements. We act quickly because sometimes waiting for committee approval means watching innocents die. He paused, looking around the assembly. You call us young and inexperienced. You are correct. We have been in space for only 50 years. But in those 50 years, we have saved 14 species from extinction. We have stopped 6 genocides. We have brought peace to 23 different conflicts. We have shared our medical knowledge, freely, asking nothing in return. If this makes us unfit for galactic society, then we accept that judgment. The hall remained silent. Veltar's crystalline form reflected the chamber's lights as he considered Taimin's words. Your intentions may be good, Veltar finally said, but good intentions do not excuse reckless behavior. The galaxy requires order, stability, predictability. Humans provide none of these things. You are chaos wrapped in noble purpose. The vote was called. One by one, each species cast their decision. The results appeared on screens throughout the hall in all major galactic languages. Taiman watched the numbers climb steadily against humanity. The Peaceful Coalition voted to expel humans for being too violent. The Military Alliance voted to expel them for being too soft. The Academic Assembly called them too ignorant. The Ancient Collective called them too presumptuous. Even species that had benefited from human aid voted for expulsion, citing pressure from their neighbors. When the final count appeared, the hall fell completely silent. 846 votes for expulsion, 1 vote against, the Kithrin. Delegation had abstained rather than vote either way, but that was not counted as support. The decision is unanimous, Veltar announced. Humanity is hereby expelled from galactic society. All human colonies beyond the Sol system must be abandoned within 50 standard cycles. All trade agreements are terminated immediately. All cultural and educational exchanges cease. The Sol system will be declared off-limits to all galactic shipping. He turned to look directly at Taimin. You have 30 days to remove all human presence from Council space. Any humans found beyond your home system after that deadline will be considered hostile invaders. The hall waited for Taimin's response. They expected anger, protests, threats of retaliation. Some species had prepared for human military resistance. Others had already begun dividing up former human territory. Taimin stood quietly for a long moment. Then he bowed formally to the assembly. "We understand," he said simply. "We will comply with the Council's decision. We request only that you provide formal documentation of these proceedings for our records." Veltar's crystalline features showed confusion. "You accept this judgment without protest?" "The Council has spoken clearly," Taimin replied. "Humanity is not wanted here. We will remove ourselves as requested." He gathered his documents and walked calmly toward the exit. Jinho and Sora followed him, their faces carefully neutral. The entire hall watched in stunned silence as the human delegation simply left without drama or threats. In the corridor outside, Sora finally spoke. "Sir, I've been 6 months after the Council's verdict, Hyunwoo stood on the observation platform of New Harmony's central tower and watched the last human transport ships load cargo containers. The planet's 3 suns cast long shadows across the spaceport, as humanity's largest colony prepared to die. "Evacuation status report," he spoke into his communicator. "Sector 7 complete," came the reply from his assistant coordinator. "All residents relocated, industrial equipment secured. We're ahead of schedule, sir." Hyunwoo nodded. Ahead of schedule had become humanity's motto during the Exodus. The galaxy expected chaos, desperation, people clinging to homes they had built with their own hands. Instead, they witnessed the most efficient mass migration in galactic history. "Sir," a young engineer approached him. "The mining consortium representatives are here again. They want to know when they can claim the extraction facilities." "Tell them the same thing we told them yesterday," Hyunwoo replied without turning around. "When we're finished." The engineer hesitated. "They're getting impatient, sir. They say the facilities belong to the galaxy now, not to us." Hyunwoo finally turned to face him. "Did we build those facilities?" "Yes, sir." "Did we design them, construct them, maintain them?" "Yes, sir." "Then they're ours, and we're taking them with us." The engineer smiled. It was the same conversation happening on every human world. Alien corporations had assumed they could simply move into abandoned human infrastructure. They had not expected humans to dismantle everything they had built. On the planet's surface, massive construction mechs worked around the clock. But instead of building, they were deconstructing. Every factory, every power plant, every piece of technology that humans had brought to New Harmony was being carefully taken apart and loaded onto cargo ships. The work was methodical, precise. Nothing was left to chance. Nothing was left behind. Mi Young received the daily progress report from her office on Luna. As lead engineer of the Pathfinder project, she coordinated the technical aspects of humanity's greatest relocation. Her screen showed status updates from 23 different star systems. The Kepler colony finished dismantling their fusion reactors, her assistant reported. The Ross system completed their agricultural pod extraction. Proxima Base is ahead of schedule on their manufacturing complex removal. "What about the complaints from other species?" Mi Young asked. 17 formal protests filed with the Galactic Council. They're demanding we leave the infrastructure intact for easier transition. Mi Young laughed. "Easier transition to what?" "They voted to expel us, not inherit our work." She pulled up the technical specifications for the latest transport ships. Humanity had been building them in secret for 2 years, ever since intelligence. Reports suggested the Council might take action against them. The ships used advanced gravitational manipulation drives that didn't rely on the galaxy's gate network. "Status on the deep-range tests?" she asked. "All successful. We can reach targets 40% faster than standard galactic ships, and we don't need their navigation beacons." Mi Young smiled. The galaxy thought they were cutting humanity off from civilization. They had no idea that humans had been preparing to leave the neighborhood entirely. Admiral Dongmin coordinated fleet movements from his flagship, the Terran defense vessel Indomitable. His job was ensuring every human got home safely, despite increasingly aggressive interference from alien forces. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "the hegemony fleet is moving into position around the Vega system. They're claiming navigational authority over human evacuation routes. How many ships? Dongmin asked. 47 combat vessels. They're demanding inspection rights over our cargo ships. Dongmin studied the tactical display. The hegemony wanted to see what humans were taking with them. More importantly, they wanted to claim anything valuable left behind. Signal the convoy commanders, he ordered. Route change. We're taking the long way home. Sir, that will add 3 weeks to the evacuation timeline. Better 3 weeks late than giving them the satisfaction of searching our ships. The Terran. Fleet changed course smoothly. 47 human vessels moved in perfect formation, their escort ships maintaining protective positions around civilian transports. The hegemony fleet found themselves protecting empty space, while humans took an alternate route that bypassed their jurisdiction entirely. On Tau Ceti 4, the evacuation took an unexpected turn. Local alien settlers had been watching humans pack up their colony for weeks. They had assumed the humans would abandon their agricultural projects, leaving behind fertile farmland and established crops. Instead, they watched in amazement as humans carefully dug up entire orchards. Trees that had taken years to grow were being transplanted into specialized cargo containers. Soil that had been enriched through human techniques was being collected and shipped away. They're taking the dirt, one alien farmer reported to his government. They're literally taking the dirt with them. The report reached the Galactic Council within days. Veltar read it with growing confusion. They're taking agricultural soil? Why? Our experts believe they plan to establish farming operations elsewhere, his aide explained. They're not just evacuating people, Speaker. They're evacuating their entire civilization. Similar reports flooded in from other human colonies. Humans were removing factories piece by piece. They were draining industrial chemicals from processing plants. They were even taking decorative plants from public parks. It's unprecedented, reported the Council's Evacuation Oversight Committee. Most species abandon infrastructure when forced to relocate. Humans are removing everything they ever built. The most shocking evacuation came from Kepler Prime, humanity's first extrasolar colony. The world had been home to 2 million humans for 30 years. Cities sprawled across 3 continents. Massive spaceports handled traffic from across human space. Jinwoo commanded the evacuation fleet for Kepler Prime. He had been born on the planet, had served in its defense forces, had planned to raise his children there. Now he was overseeing its complete abandonment. Final transport loaded, his logistics officer reported. All civilians evacuated, all equipment secured. And the cities? Jinwoo asked. Demolition charges are in place, remote detonators ready. Jinwoo looked at the tactical display showing Kepler Prime's surface. 30 years of human work was about to disappear. Any alien observers in the area? 3 survey ships maintaining standard distance. They're probably expecting to claim the cities once we leave. Then let's give them something to observe. Detonate the charges. The explosions were visible from orbit. Not the violent destruction of warfare, but the controlled demolition of a civilization that refused to leave anything behind for those who had rejected them. Buildings collapsed inward with mathematical precision. Industrial sites disappeared in clouds of dust. Even the spaceports were reduced to empty concrete pads. When the alien survey ships reached the surface, they found nothing usable. Every structure had been reduced to rubble. Every piece of technology had been removed or destroyed. Even the power grid had been completely dismantled. Why? The lead alien surveyor transmitted to his government. Why destroy everything instead of simply leaving? The question reached Earth within days. Journalists across human space asked the same thing. Why demolish cities that could have housed other species? Why destroy infrastructure that had taken decades to build? Dongmin answered the question during a fleet-wide broadcast. We built those cities with our hands, our sweat, our dreams. They voted to throw us out like garbage. We're ensuring that none of our work remains to benefit those who considered us unworthy. The broadcasts were picked up by alien monitoring stations. Soon the entire galaxy was watching humanity's exodus with growing amazement. This wasn't the desperate flight of refugees. This was the organized withdrawal of a civilization that refused to be pitied. "They're taking everything," reported Galactic News Network. "Not just people and personal possessions. They're removing entire industries, complete ecosystems, whole sections of cities. It's as if they plan to rebuild their entire civilization somewhere else." The speculation grew wild. Where were humans going? What were they planning? Why were they so calm about losing everything they had built among the stars? Intelligence services across the galaxy tried to track human ship movements, but the trails went cold at the edge of explored space. Human vessels were disappearing into regions that had never been mapped, using technology that didn't appear in any galactic database. "They've gone beyond the rim," reported the Council's Intelligence Committee. "Our sensors lose contact with their ships at the edge of known space. We have no idea where they're going." Veltar studied the reports with growing unease. The Council had expected to spend years dealing with human protests, negotiating compensation for abandoned property, managing refugee problems. Instead, humans had simply vanished with military efficiency. "How long until the evacuation is complete?" he asked. "Current projections suggest another 6 months. They're ahead of their own schedule." "And they're really taking everything?" "Everything. They can move, yes. Everything else they destroy. Our economic projectors estimate the lost infrastructure value at over 2 trillion galactic credits." Veltar's crystalline form flickered with concern. 2 trillion credits worth a... 5 years had passed since the last human ship disappeared beyond the galactic rim. The galaxy had settled into its new normal, redistributing human territory among the victorious species. Trade routes adjusted to avoid the quarantined Sol system. Most aliens rarely thought about humanity anymore. Seung-ho stood on the bridge of the deep space exploration vessel Pioneer's Dream, watching an impossible sight through the main viewport. Before them stretched a massive space station, its architecture unlike anything in galactic records. Ancient spires twisted through space for kilometers, their surfaces covered in symbols that predated known civilization. "How long has this been here?" he asked his science officer. "Computer analysis suggests at least 5 million years," Yuna replied, checking her instruments. "But sir, that's not the strangest part. Power readings indicate it's still active." Seung-ho nodded. This was the 15th ancient structure his expedition had found in the void beyond the galaxy's edge. Humanity's exile had become the greatest archaeological opportunity in history. While the galaxy squabbled over human territory, humans were discovering the ruins of civilizations that had ruled the stars when Earth was still forming. "Send a full sensor sweep to the archive project," he ordered, "and prepare a boarding team. We're going inside." The archive project was humanity's most ambitious undertaking. Hidden in a star system 40,000 light-years beyond the galactic rim, human scientists were building the largest database in known history. Every discovery, every piece of ancient technology, every scrap of information about the galaxy's true past was being collected and studied. 3,000 light-years away, Captain Yunji guided her stealth ship Ghostwalk through the outer regions of galactic space. Her mission was mapping, but not the kind the galaxy would expect. She was charting every strategic position, every resource-rich system, every weakness in galactic defenses. "Contact on long-range sensors," her navigator reported quietly. "Hegemony patrol, standard formation." "Do they see us?" Yunji asked. "No sign of detection. Our stealth systems are holding." Yunji smiled. Human stealth technology had advanced far beyond anything the galaxy possessed. Her ship could fly through the middle of a fleet and remain invisible to their sensors. It was just one of many technological improvements humanity had made during their exile. "Mark their position and continue mapping," she ordered. "Command wants complete intelligence on all military movements in this sector." The Ghostwalk was one of 50 stealth vessels operating throughout galactic space. Officially, humans had no presence beyond Sol system. Unofficially, they had better intelligence networks than the Galactic Council's own security services. Director Wu Jin reviewed the latest intelligence reports from his office on Sanctuary Station, humanity's secret headquarters in the void. The information painted a concerning picture of galactic politics. "The hegemony is expanding again," his chief analyst reported. "They've claimed 4 former human colonies and are pressuring neighboring species for territorial concessions. What? About the peaceful coalition? Fractured. 3 species have leftover disagreements about military spending. The remaining members are too weak to resist hegemony pressure. Wu Jin studied the political map displayed on his screen. Red zones showed hegemony expansion. Yellow indicated disputed territories. Green marked stable regions, and there were fewer green zones every month. The galaxy is becoming less stable without human intervention, he observed. Yes, sir. Our projections suggest major conflicts within 2 years if current trends continue. Wu Jin made notes on his tablet. Humanity's intelligence network was providing detailed reports on galactic politics, but they had strict orders not to intervene. Earth's government wanted complete information about how the galaxy functioned without human influence. The results were not encouraging. Back on the ancient space station, Sung Ho's team made a discovery that would change everything. Deep in the station's core, they found a vast computer system still operational after millions of years. The data it contained told the story of the galaxy's first spacefaring civilization. They called themselves the Builders, Dr. Heywan explained, as she downloaded the ancient files. They created most of the technology that modern galactic civilization takes for granted. Faster than light travel, artificial gravity, universal translators, even the basic principles of stellar engineering. What happened to them? Sung Ho asked. They were destroyed by something called the Devourer Fleet, automated warships from outside the galaxy, designed to consume all intelligent life. The Builders fought them for 1,000 years before finally falling. Sung Ho felt a chill despite the station's warm atmosphere. Are these Devourers still out there? The records suggest they return in cycles. They sweep through the galaxy, destroy all advanced civilizations, then retreat to the void to wait for new species to develop spaceflight. When was the last cycle? Dr. Heywan checked her calculations. 5 million years ago. But sir, there are recent energy signatures in the outer void. Something big is moving out there. The implications hit Sung Ho immediately. If the ancient records were accurate, the galaxy was approaching another devourer cycle, and humanity might be the only species that knew about it. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was dealing with its own problems. Speaker Veltar reviewed reports of increasing tensions throughout galactic space. Without human intervention, several long-standing conflicts had reignited. The Corvin Republic and the Stellar Union are mobilizing their fleets, his aide reported. Intelligence suggests they plan to fight for control of the former human colony at Wolf 359. What about the peace accords we negotiated? Both sides claim the other violated the terms. Without neutral mediators, the situation is escalating. Veltar's crystalline form dimmed with concern. Humans had often served as neutral mediators in galactic disputes. Their emotional approach to diplomacy had been criticized, but it had also prevented many wars. Send our own mediation team, he ordered. Sir, we tried that. Both sides rejected council mediation. They claim we're biased toward the hegemony. It was a fair accusation. The council's elder species had grown comfortable with their positions of power. Younger species increasingly viewed council mediation as an attempt to maintain the status quo rather than achieve fair solutions. What about economic sanctions? The Corvin Republic has stopped trading with council species entirely. They're buying weapons from independent manufacturers now. Veltar realized with growing alarm that the galaxy's carefully maintained balance was crumbling. Human expulsion had removed more than just one troublesome species. It had eliminated the galaxy's most effective peacekeepers. Captain Yun Ji was monitoring the same conflict from her position near Wolf 359. Her sensors tracked fleet movements on both sides as the Corvin Republic and Stellar Union prepared for war. Both fleets are using modified human weapon designs, her tactical officer observed. They reverse-engineered technology from abandoned human installations. Are the modifications effective? Yun Ji asked. No, ma'am. They don't understand the underlying principles. The weapons are less efficient than original human designs. Yun Ji wasn't surprised. Humanity's greatest advantage had never been individual technologies, but their ability to integrate different systems into cohesive wholes. Other species could copy human weapons, but they couldn't replicate human tactical thinking. Signal fleet. Command, she ordered. Recommend we avoid this sector for the next few months. This war is going to be messy. The war began 3 days later. Both sides expected a quick victory using their new human-derived weapons. Instead, they discovered that copied technology was no substitute for understanding. The conflict dragged on for months, with massive casualties and no clear winner. Similar conflicts erupted across former human space. Species that had seemed peaceful for centuries suddenly found reasons to fight. Without human mediation, small disputes escalated into major wars. Director Wu Jin compiled reports of 17 active conflicts in regions that had been stable during human presence. The galaxy is eating itself, he told his staff during their weekly briefing. Should we intervene? Asked his deputy director. Our orders are clear. We observe and report. Earth's leadership wants to see how galactic civilization functions without human influence. It's not functioning well, sir. No, it's not. The most disturbing intelligence came from the galaxy's core regions. The ancient collective, the oldest spacefaring species, had begun mobilizing massive fleets. Their stated purpose was maintaining galactic order, but their movement suggested preparation for large-scale conquest. They've been waiting for this opportunity, Wu Jin's political analyst explained. Human presence prevented elder species from directly controlling younger ones. With humans gone, the old hierarchies are reasserting themselves. How long before full-scale galactic war breaks out? Computer models suggest 18 months, possibly less. Wu Jin forwarded the report to Earth immediately. Humanity had left the galaxy to avoid causing chaos. Instead, their absence was creating exactly the chaos they had tried to prevent. On the ancient builder station, Sung Ho's team made their most significant discovery in the deepest vaults. Ancient records described not just the Devourer fleet's past attacks, but their schedule. The first attack came without warning at the edge of the galaxy. The mining colony on Kepler's edge simply vanished from all communication networks. When a hegemony patrol arrived to investigate, they found nothing but empty space where a planet had been. Admiral Jun Seo received the alert on his flagship New Earth, hidden in a dark nebula 50 light-years beyond the galactic rim. His fleet of 200 vessels represented the largest concentration of military power in human history, built during 5 years of secret preparation. Confirmed Devourer contact, his intelligence officer reported. Kepler's edge destroyed, completely. No survivors, no debris, no trace of the planet itself. Junseo studied the tactical display showing the galaxy's edge. Red markers indicated confirmed Devourer attacks. In just 6 hours, 12 worlds had been consumed. The ancient enemy had returned exactly as the builder records predicted. Status of galactic response, he asked. Complete confusion, sir. The Galactic Council doesn't understand what's attacking them. They're sending investigation fleets to systems that no longer exist. Junseo nodded grimly. The galaxy's military forces were designed for conventional warfare between species with similar technology. They had no experience fighting an enemy that could erase entire worlds without leaving traces. Signal the fleet commanders, he ordered. Begin Phase 1 deployment, and send a message to Earth. Tell them the Devourers are here. 300 light-years away, the hegemony's 13th fleet faced the impossible. Admiral Kranix watched through his flagship's sensors as Devourer ships emerged from hyperspace around the industrial world of Vortis Prime. The enemy vessels defied every principle of known physics. They appeared as shifting geometric forms that hurt to look at directly. Their hulls seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons that should have destroyed them passed through empty space, while their return fire eliminated hegemony ships with mathematical precision. Fall back to defensive positions, Kranix ordered, but his fleet was already fragmenting. Captains who had fought for decades were panicking at the sight of technology they couldn't understand. The Devourer ships ignored the fleeing fleet entirely. They focused on Vortis Prime itself, extending strange energy beams that began consuming the planet's matter. Kranix watched in horror as continents simply disappeared, converted into energy that fed the alien vessels. "Get us out of here," he whispered, abandoning 10 million civilians to an enemy that consumed worlds like food. On Nexus Prime, Speaker Veltar called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 800 species gathered in panic as reports flooded in from across the galaxy's rim. 17 systems destroyed in the past day, he announced to the assembly. "We face an enemy unlike anything in our recorded history. Their technology appears to be millions of years ahead of our own." Councillor Thane of the Exploration Guild raised a trembling appendage. "Our military analysts believe these attacks are preliminary. The main enemy force is still approaching from intergalactic space." Panicked voices filled the chamber. Species that had squabbled over human territory suddenly faced extinction. Their carefully maintained political hierarchies meant nothing to an enemy that viewed all intelligent life as prey. "What do our military commanders recommend?" Veltar asked. General Vorthak of the Combined Defense Forces stepped forward. His species had dominated galactic military doctrine for centuries, but his confidence was shattered. "Our conventional weapons are ineffective. Our ships can't match their speed or maneuverability. Our sensors can barely track their movements." "Then what do you suggest?" "Evacuation. We need to abandon the rim worlds and establish defensive positions around core systems." The suggestion caused an uproar. Abandoning billions of people to save the politically important core worlds violated every principle of galactic civilization. But as more reports arrived of worlds simply vanishing, the harsh mathematics of survival became clear. The debate continued for hours while the Devourer fleet advanced deeper into galactic space. Traditional military doctrine crumbled against an enemy that consumed matter itself as fuel. Evacuation fleets fled toward the galactic core, carrying refugees from a war that couldn't be fought. Admiral Jun Seo positioned his fleet at the battle of Kepler's Gate, the most strategic hyperspace junction between the galaxy's rim and its inhabited core. If the Devourer fleet could be slowed anywhere, it would be here. The human fleet waited in the shadow of the ancient gate structure. There, ships powered down to minimal signatures, Jun Seo watched the tactical display as the last galactic defense fleet prepared to make its stand. Commander Hyawan transmitted the final intelligence report from her deep reconnaissance ship. "Galactic forces are in full retreat. The Combined Defense Fleet is attempting one last defensive action at Kepler's Gate, but their formation is already breaking apart." Jun Seo could see why. The approaching Devourer ships moved in patterns that violated basic physics. They existed partially, outside normal spacetime, making targeting nearly impossible for conventional weapons. The Galactic Fleet's neat battle lines were useless against enemies that could appear anywhere instantly. "Signal all ships," Jun Seo ordered. "Prepare for combat, and transmit our message to the galactic forces." The transmission reached the fleeing Galactic Fleet just as their rear guard was being consumed by Devourer beams. In his panic, Admiral Kranix almost ignored the communication from an unknown source. Then he heard the words that changed everything. "This is Admiral Jun Seo of the Terran Space Navy. We have received your distress signals. We are here to help." Kranix stared at his communication screen in disbelief. Terran Space Navy? But humans were expelled. "They have no ships in this region." "Sir," his sensor officer called out. "New contacts emerging from the nebula. 200 ships, unknown design." The human fleet revealed itself in perfect formation. Their vessels were unlike anything in galactic records. Sleek, organic-looking, ships that moved with fluid grace. They approached the Devourer fleet without the panic or confusion that had characterized every other galactic response. "This is impossible," Kranix whispered. "Where did they get those ships?" His answer came when the human fleet engaged the Devourers in combat. Instead of futile conventional attacks, human ships moved in complex three-dimensional patterns. They used weapons that bent spacetime itself, creating gravitational anomalies that trapped Devourer vessels in folded dimensions. For the first time since the attacks began, Devourer ships were being destroyed. Jun Seo commanded the battle from his neural link with the fleet's tactical network. Human crew members had been genetically enhanced for faster reaction times and better spatial processing. Their ships were controlled by artificial intelligences that could predict Devourer movement Patterns. Target the dimensional anchor points, he transmitted to his squadron leaders. Force them back into normal space-time before engaging. Human weapons weren't more powerful than galactic technology, but they were designed specifically to fight the Devourers. 5 years of studying builder records had taught humanity exactly how to combat an enemy that existed partially outside reality. Commander Chang Min led the most dangerous mission of the battle. His stealth frigate Defiant Hope approached a Devourer mothership, while the main fleet kept it distracted. His mission was to plant a virus derived from builder technology directly into the enemy vessel's core systems. Approaching the target, he reported through the quantum communication link. Their hull is phasing in and out of normal space. I'm matching their dimensional frequency. Changmin's ship existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, using technology that would have been considered impossible by galactic science. His crew wore special suits that protected them from the dimensional stress of operating outside normal reality. Hull breach achieved, his engineer reported. Accessing their primary systems now. The virus they planted wasn't just computer code. It was a dimensional weapon that forced Devourer ships back into normal space-time permanently. Once trapped in three-dimensional reality, the ancient warships became vulnerable to conventional destruction. The Battle of Kepler's Gate lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Devourer fleet's advance had been stopped for the first time in 5 million years. Dozens of the ancient warships drifted as lifeless hulks, their dimensional drives disabled by human technology. Admiral Kranix contacted the human fleet as soon as the battle ended. Admiral Junseo, this is Admiral Kranix. Of the Hegemony Defense Force, how is this possible? Your species was expelled from galactic space. Junseo's reply was calm and professional. We received your distress signals, Admiral. When people are in danger, humans respond. It's what we do. But where did you get these ships? This technology? We've been busy during our exile. We found some old friends who left us instructions for dealing with this particular problem. The truth was more complex. Humanity had spent 5 years preparing for this exact scenario. They had studied builder technology, enhanced their own biology, and built a fleet specifically designed to fight the Devourers. The exile that was meant to weaken them had instead given them time to become the galaxy's saviors. Envoy Hyewan transmitted to the Galactic Council during the battle's aftermath. This is Hyewan speaking for the Terran government. We have Prime Minister Byung-ho arrived at Nexus Prime 3 months after the Battle of Kepler's Gate. Unlike the last human delegation that had left in defeat, he came as the leader of an independent galactic power. His ship, the diplomatic vessel New Dawn, docked at the station's primary port with full ceremonial honors. The galaxy had changed dramatically since humanity's victory over the Devourers. Species that had spent centuries following galactic protocol now questioned everything about their civilization. The beings they had expelled as too dangerous had proven to be their only effective protectors. Speaker Veltar met Byung-ho at the docking bay, his crystalline form dim with exhaustion. The past months had been the most challenging of his long career. Prime Minister Byung-ho, welcome back to Nexus Prime. The Galactic Council is grateful for humanity's assistance during the crisis. Byung-ho walked beside the ancient alien leader, his aide Sumin following quietly behind them. We didn't come to help the Galactic Council, Speaker Veltar. We came to help people who were in danger. The distinction was important. Humanity wasn't seeking approval from the galactic government. They had acted independently, based on their own principles rather than political considerations. Nevertheless, Veltar continued, the Council wishes to discuss humanity's return to galactic civilization. We believe past misunderstandings can be resolved. Byung-ho smiled politely. There were no misunderstandings, Speaker. The Council voted unanimously to expel humanity because they found us unfit for galactic society. We accepted that judgment and left as requested. They reached the Council chambers where emergency sessions had been held continuously since the Devourer attack. Representatives from hundreds of species waited to hear humanity's terms for returning to galactic civilization. The situation has changed. Veltar explained as they entered the Great Hall. The Council recognizes that humanity possesses capabilities essential for galactic defense. We are prepared to offer full membership with expanded privileges. Expanded privileges? Byung-ho asked. Permanent seats on the Security Council, favorable trade agreements, territorial concessions. The Council wishes to make amends for past decisions. Byung-ho took his seat at the speaker's platform, the same place where Ambassador Tae-min had received humanity's expulsion order. The symbolism was deliberate. Thank you for the offer, Speaker Veltar. But humanity is no longer interested in joining galactic civilization as it currently exists. Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. The Council had expected negotiations over membership terms, not outright rejection. I don't understand, Veltar said. You wish to remain isolated in your home system? Not isolated, Byung-ho replied. Independent. During our exile, humanity discovered something important about this galaxy. It's much larger than you know. Ambassador Su-min activated a holographic display that filled the chamber with star charts. But these weren't the familiar maps of galactic civilization. They showed vast regions beyond the rim, hundreds of systems that had never been surveyed by galactic explorers. In 5 years of exploration, we have discovered 437 habitable worlds, Su-min announced. We have established colonies on 63 of them. We have made contact with 17 species that exist outside galactic civilization. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members shouted questions in dozens of languages. The translators struggled to keep up with demands for clarification. Order, Veltar called, his voice echoing through the hall. Are you claiming to have expanded beyond the galactic rim? We're not claiming anything, Byung-ho replied calmly. We're simply informing you of facts. Humanity now controls more territory than any single member of this council. We have access to resources you've never cataloged and technologies you don't understand. Councillor Thane stood up, his insectoid features twitching with agitation. This is impossible. Our surveys show nothing but empty space beyond the rim. Your surveys were limited by your assumptions, Su-min explained. You looked for worlds that matched galactic civilization's criteria. We looked for worlds that could support life, regardless of their current condition. She showed images of human colonies on worlds that galactic science would have considered uninhabitable. Humans had terraformed toxic atmospheres, built cities in asteroid fields, and established thriving communities in regions of space that other species avoided. The point is, Byung-ho continued, humanity no longer needs galactic civilization. We have our own territory, our own resources, our own allies. We're here today not as supplicants seeking readmission, but as an independent power proposing a new relationship. Veltar's crystalline form brightened with anxiety. What kind of relationship? Partnership among equals. No more hierarchies based on age or traditional power. No more councils that make decisions for species that aren't represented. No more expulsion votes that cast out inconvenient members. The proposal sent shockwaves through the assembly. Galactic civilization had been built on the principle that elder species guided younger ones. The idea of treating all species as equals challenged the foundation of their society. The current system has failed, Byung-ho stated bluntly. During humanity's absence, 17 wars broke out in regions that had been peaceful for centuries. Elder species used our expulsion as an excuse to seize territory from younger civilizations. The galaxy became less stable, less prosperous, and less secure. Representative Quicks of the Peaceful Coalition spoke up, her tentacles waving nervously. But surely the existing structure can be reformed. The Council has maintained galactic peace for thousands of years. Has it? Su-min asked, displaying new data on the holographic screens. Our intelligence networks tracked 43 active conflicts during humanity's 5-year absence. Border disputes, trade wars, territorial seizures, and ethnic conflicts. Your peace was an illusion maintained by human intervention that you never acknowledged. The data was irrefutable. Without human mediation, diplomacy, and peacekeeping efforts, galactic civilization had begun to fragment. Species that seemed civilized revealed themselves to be as aggressive as any others when they thought they could get away with it. Director Kite joined the presentation, representing humanity's humanitarian operations. While the galaxy fought over our former territory, we were building something better. Our new colonies don't just house humans. We've provided refuge for species displaced by the conflicts that erupted after our expulsion. He showed images of mixed communities where humans lived alongside aliens who had fled galactic wars. Former refugees had become productive citizens of human worlds, contributing their knowledge and skills to communities that valued their contributions. The Corvin, refugees from the Wolf 359 War, Kite explained. The Stellar Union colonists displaced by hegemony expansion. The Vorthon traders whose shipping routes were destroyed by territorial disputes. They all found homes in human space, because we believe diversity makes us stronger. The presentation continued for hours. Humanity revealed the scope of their expansion, their technological advances, and their vision for galactic civilization. But they weren't asking for permission or approval. They were simply informing the Council of new realities. What exactly are you proposing? Veltar finally asked. A new galactic confederation, Byung-ho replied. Independent member species cooperating as equals. No hierarchies based on age or traditional power. Decisions made by consensus among sovereign governments. Membership based on principles of cooperation, not political convenience. And if the Council rejects this proposal, then you reject it. We'll continue building our confederation with species that share our values. The choice is yours. The threat was subtle but clear. Humanity didn't need galactic civilization anymore. They had become a rival power capable of offering alternatives to species dissatisfied with traditional galactic governance. Councillor Flix of the Ancient Collective rose slowly, his massive form dominating the chamber. You speak of equality among species, but some civilizations have guided galactic development for millennia. Do you expect us to abandon our rightful leadership roles? We expect you to earn them, Byung-ho replied without hesitation. If elder species have wisdom worth following, others will choose to follow. If they don't, then their age means nothing. The response struck at the heart of galactic civilization's power structure. Elder species had ruled through assumption of superiority, not demonstration of competence. Humanity was proposing that influence be earned rather than inherited. This confederation of yours, Veltar asked carefully, would it include all species? All. Species that accept our principles. Peaceful coexistence, mutual respect, cooperation for common benefit. Species that can't accept those principles are welcome to form their own associations. Ambassador Su-min added the final element of humanity's proposal. We're offering immediate membership to any species that wants to join. Our colonies have resources, our technology can solve problems, and our military can provide protection. The only requirement is commitment to treating all members as equals. The implications rippled through the chamber. Younger species could bypass the traditional galactic hierarchy entirely by joining the Human Confederation. They could gain access to advanced technology, protected territory, and equal representation without spending centuries